Welcome to the first interview of the Surround Yourself podcast. This is a show where we interview people who are being successful in life. I'm your host, Danny Bronson. For this first interview, I felt it necessary to interview probably the only person listening to this show, my mom, Patty Bronson. She has an amazing story about starting a business while raising two Hellraisers, and the transition from that business being kind of her side business to becoming her sole income. I hope this interview helps inspire someone who is considering taking the leap into entrepreneurship. Just contemplating pushing all your chips on the table and saying all in. To her credit, she remained extremely humble in this interview. And with me being a novice interviewer, I realized post-recording that I could have probably pushed her a little harder on her struggles, her sacrifices, and risks she took to become the woman she is today. And Mom, since you're the only one listening, thanks for being my first guest on the show that I hope runs hundreds of episodes. I hope you enjoy this interview. Welcome to the Surround Yourself podcast. Today we're here with Patty Bronson, who is also my mother. And so I figured she'd be a great way to start this show and this whole little project out, and getting to know a little bit about her story and the business that she has built. So what is it exactly that you do?
I do custom drapery, which includes drapes, also bedding, pillows, lots and lots of pillows, anything really that you can make with fabric. I do.
Cut and sew.
Cut and sew.
Only thing
Measure twice, cut once.
The only thing I know about that is don't touch your scissors, because I got yelled at plenty of times for that.
Yes.
Do you have a college degree or anything like that going into it? Or
No, I went to photography school, and then I met who is now my ex-husband, and got married and started a family.
Yeah, you had one great son and one degenerate.
No, I have two great sons.
The great ones on this podcast.
I have two great sons.
So how did you get started just sewing in general? Is that something you've done since you were a little kid, or is that something that started on later in life?
Really later in life. My mom sewed. She made all my clothes up until kindergarten, and then she got rheumatoid arthritis and couldn't sew anymore. And I used her machine at one point and made my older sister these real simple halter top kind of things. This was back in the 60s, so you can imagine what they look like. I made one pair of pants that I wore in 7th grade that had elastic top, and they were really bad, and then never sewed again.
And when did you pick it back up?
Let's see, Danny, my son was probably 3.
That's me.
And we built a house in Stone Mountain. We had 4.5 acres. It was a great house, had a pool, but all our money went into the house. So I bought a $100 sewing machine and decided that I would start sewing.
So your intention was to try to make a business out of that, or was it just, hey, I'm going to sew the kids some clothing, try to save some money, or was it?
No, I was going to try and make some curtains for our windows, and then I started making costumes for the kids.
Batman capes
And Superman. I did the Yellow Daisy Festival for 5 years. 4 of those I made all kinds of kids costumes, from capes to Peter Pan to pirates, and I would sit by the pool and sew squares together for pillow wreaths. And
those are the pillow wreaths. I remember those being a real big thing.
Yeah, they were.
You were doing.
Yeah, I think I sold about 400 of those.
400 of those in 1 year, or is that just over the course of making them?
In the 1 year that I sold them at the Yellow Daisy Festival.
Okay.
I sold them there, and then I took them down to Savannah for 2 different events there. But, yeah.
So when did things start transitioning more into I know you said you had made a couple drapes and stuff like that, but when did that more start becoming the primary focus of what you were doing?
I did a couple of the rooms in our house in Stone Mountain, and a girlfriend of mine gave my name to somebody, and I was just going to do some real simple balances for her, and then it kind of snowballed from there. Chris and I I did several freebies for people, and I'm like, wait a minute, this could be a business.
Yep.
And it was something I always wanted, something that I could do and be home with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be room mom at school, be there when they got off the bus, and this was something I could work around. So it was really a hobby. It paid for, in the very beginning, it paid for really my equipment and a few groceries and just, minimal
Right.
stuff.
But at this point, you're just nothing but word of mouth and all that as far as advertising. You're not putting...
I've never really advertised.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any mentors showing you how to sew, or did you just kind of
I
figure
eventually
it out?
got with a group, and we met once a month, and we would share ideas and pricing, and if you had questions. Really working with my friend Chris got me started, and then I just kind of experimented with it.
Right.
We didn't last real long because my husband at the time traveled a lot, and so when I would work until 2 a.m. because I could get stuff done when the kids were asleep, and Chris would get mad, and not mad, but I didn't want to lose a friendship over a business.
Right.
And we've remained friends, and she became very successful too.
And then we moved on to Athens, where you started doing more and more, built a workroom,
Mm-hmm.
or a bigger workroom.
A bigger workroom, yeah. Started out in the garage here, but as my business grew, as I started to get some designers here in Athens and things like that, houses were built with the intention of me having a workroom.
Yeah. Let's see. And you mentioned that now your ex-husband. Prior to that, was your income sufficient enough to where you could have survived on your own?
I don't think so. I didn't think so.
Just trying to get an idea of where the business was.
I was lucky to be able to buy a bolt of lining. I would think I was getting ahead, and then I'd run out of lining, and then that was another, $300 that had to go out the window, or I'd want a new machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I built up, a lot of equipment and stuff like that as I grew.
Yeah, that's the nature of business, isn't it?
Right.
So,
it takes money to make money.
Always going to take a step or two backwards every step you take forward.
Yes, and there were several step backwards before I finally get going forward.
Oh yeah. Were there any? Trying to think of how to say it, just hurdles to jump through as far as starting the business. You know how to sew and stuff like that, but the actual business side of it, anybody can have their thing, but then there's this other thing called business, which throws a whole bunch of other...
Right, you have to learn how to do sales use tax, and there's a lot of government stuff you also have to learn. Keeping your inventory so that you have enough lining in stock, have enough piliforms in stock.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big learning curve. Mm-hmm. That's because you had no idea.
Did you have some issues with pricing? It's like, oh, well, I only have X or $100 in fabric in this, so I'm only going to charge $200 to do it. Then you, at the end of the day, you realize that, wow, I made $3 an hour making that.
No, because most of the time I would not purchase the fabric. The client purchases the fabric and brings it to me, or the designer. Now that I've gotten to the name that I have, most of my designers have fabric shipped directly to me. I do carry fabrics. I have, several lines that if a client
Or to walk in,
wants to walk in, they can come and pick out stuff. And
one of the 100,000 fabric books you have lined
Yes.
up that weigh 4 billion pounds,
Mm-hmm.
or 4 quadrillion pounds, to
Quadrillion
use my
pounds.
son's terminology.
Yes.
Let's see. So, what have you found to be the biggest pain in the ass as far as running a business, being a sole proprietor or entrepreneur?
Well, especially when you don't, most people say, oh, I live paycheck to paycheck. Well, I live job to job,
Right.
and I don't know what the next job is going to be. Mm-hmm. And it's taken a while to get to the point where I have jobs lined up.
Right. Where you're starting to get a backlog and having to
actually have money in the bank. And then taxes are due.
Right. Well, that's a whole nother, we can do a whole show on those. Let's see. I mean, so after the divorce became your sole income doing the drapery, I mean, was that a huge shock for you, or was
I was
that
scared to death.
Right.
I was at first looking for jobs, and I'm going, well, I could make $12 an hour doing this, or $15 an hour doing that. Whereas, I can make $75 making a panel.
Right.
And it's something I love. And I'm with different people every day. I'm with different clients. I meet a lot of people, and I love it. I love what I do, and just decided, give it a shot.
But I mean, do you think the pressure of saying, "Hey, I gotta get these jobs, I gotta make these panels, or I'm gonna lose my house,"
that made a huge difference.
Played into just really making a solid, or just really making the leap into.
Yes, it put my focus more into that. By this time, my boys were grown. You guys were gone, basically out of the house. And I could focus more on it as being a business versus being a hobby, something that I could do to bring in a little bit of income but still be a stay-at-home mom.
Right, so it went from your, as a kid, a side hustle to being your full-fledged income and stuff like that.
Right.
That's awesome.
And it's still scary.
Oh, it definitely is. Definitely is. I mean, do you have plans for future expansion, or I don't know how you'd really expand, but just
the house I just built, I built around my workroom because UPS can drop my lining off right at my door. I can load up right at my door. I'm not going up and down stairs because I'm getting older now. And I love what I do. I can't see franchising or do anything like that.
Well, I didn't mean franchise. Well, there could be hundreds of directions to go, from franchising to signature line. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not here to advise you. I'm just trying to pick your brain and see what you're doing, what your plans are. And,
it's really working with the designers has been the biggest. Once you get your name in with a few really good designers, then and you perform how they want you to, it's not a gravy boat. I work my butt off.
Right.
There's many nights I work till 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Those are the nights you're not out dancing.
Yes. Or playing trivia, or but really having the key designers is the biggest. If I were to recommend to anybody, if they wanted to ever get into this business, is get your name going and get in with good designers.
Right. Now to transition back to my little side comments there, how have you found a good balance of having your work life, as an entrepreneur, that consumes you. That is your life. Literally it consumes you because it is in your house.
Right.
You have to walk through your work to get to your kitchen or to your living room or whatever. How have you been able to find a good balance as far as your work life, your personal life, your dancing life, and your trivia life, and friends?
You just make time. You put your priorities. If I know my jobs are done or I'm in a good place, then I'll take the night off and I'll go play trivia or go dancing or come up to Anderson to see my kids. My kids still come first.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm enjoying my life. So,
that's awesome.
I have a lot of fun. I have a lot of friends, and I have a lot of good times.
Well, that is awesome. Are there any other, let's see, you have any stories? Here, I'll throw one off the ball to you. Have you ever had that one client that just ate away a week and it just made you feel like you...
yeah, I've had several of those. That the bad luck house where everything you did went wrong. Whether it was not figuring for the rod height or, yes, there's been several. And you just have to take it as a learning experience. I didn't pay for a college education to do this. So
your education's
my education has been hands-on. But I love it. I love what I do. I install it. I do it from start to finish. I go measure. I work with the designer. I fabricate it, and then I install it. And
well, that's awesome. There's no there's nobody to blame when there's a mess up other than yourself.
Myself. It's always my fault. Or,
or if
the
somebody,
girl that works with me, Melanie, I'll blame it on her. But or whoever's working with me at the time. Oh, it's her fault, but it's usually mine. But most people are very understanding if there is a problem, and it's 99% of the time it can be fixed with no problem.
Right. I just didn't know if you had any of those wild stories that you could think of off the. I know I'm hitting you with this with absolutely no letting you know I was going to ask you this type of question.
Crazy, where I'm on ledges installing blinds, 3 stories up in the air on scaffolding, right before Christmas. There's been some crazy ones.
Well, that is awesome. I think this has been a great introduction and been lots of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Love you.
I hope you've enjoyed this first podcast. It was a lot of fun interviewing my mom. Learned a little bit about her story, which was a lot of fun. And, it's just one of those things that you just don't realize, someone that I grew up around, someone that I talk to on a regular basis, just her story. It's just a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. Bear with us. We have a lot of kinks and little stuff to work out, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to email me at surroundyourselfpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you very much.